Good morning, everyone. Magandang umaga sa lahat. Maayong buntag sa tanan. Naimbag na bigat. Marhay na aga, maupay sa tanan. Welcome to the hashtag CSU Talk, Strengthening Governance Through People's Council. I'm Mafe Del Mundo from CODE-NGO, and I will be your moderator for this session. This session is organized by the Task Force for Participatory Governance, an alliance of civil society organizations and CSO networks that aims to promote citizens' participation in local planning, budgeting, decision-making, and public service delivery. Thanks to the key members of the Task Force for Participatory Local Governance, CODE-NGO, Salle Institute of Governance, Kaisahan, and PhilDHRRA, who made this session possible. To start the program, may we request you, our dear participants, to focus your attention on your screen for the invocation to be followed by the national anthem.
Your mercy amazes me. Under your wings, your shadow covers me. Your promise of love, where my heart is safely undone. Speak to me, Lord, your servant is listening. Over the noise, I hear you whispering. My hope has come, and my heart is safely undone. I found my fortress in you, and my soul is anchored with you. My resting place is in your name, forever safe. Forever safe. Forever safe. You are never far away, always reaching out to save my weakness, covered by His strength, and I am found forever safe. You are never far away, always reaching out to save my weakness, covered by His strength, and I am found forever safe. For you are never far away, always reaching out to save my weakness, covered by His strength, and I am found forever safe. I found my fortress in you, and my soul is anchored with you. My resting place is in your name. You are never far away, always reaching out to save my weakness, covered by His strength, and I am found forever safe.
Lupang hinirang
Muli, isang masaya at mapagpalayang umaga sa ating lahat. To formally welcome us to today's event, may I call on screen the Executive Director of CODE-NGO, none other than Ms. Dinilyn Ocampo.
Okay, thank you, Mafe. Clear ba na? Clear ba ang aking voice? Clear ba, Mafe, ang voice ko?
Clear po.
Okay, thank you, thank you. DILG Director Vivian Swansing, Ms. Millet Aquino, Dr. Jane Lopez, Mr. Ruperto Aleroza, Ms. Nancy Estudioso, and over 120 guests here in the Zoom meeting room today. Welcome and good morning. I'm so happy to start the week productively with all of you and in this CSO talk and Zoom meeting. My name is Dini Ocampo. I'm part of CODE-NGO. It's my pleasure on behalf of the Task Force Participatory Local Governance to welcome you all today in this CSO talk on strengthening governance through people's councils. The Task Force PLG was established in 2004. It's a loose group of CSO sector organizations that decided to come together to talk about various issues related to participatory local governance. To date, the members are CODE-NGO, the Salle Institute of Governance, Kaisahan, and PhilDHRRA. So this morning, the webinar has two simple objectives, two but very, very important objectives. That is to raise our awareness on the salient features of the DILG Memorandum Circular number 2021-54, and also to discuss the role of non-government sectors in shaping people's councils at the local levels to ensure genuine citizen participation in local governance processes. I was happy just looking at the list of participants, hindi lang po mga leaders ng CSOs at CSO networks ang nandito ngayong umaga, kundi mga partners din natin na national government agencies, local government units both at the municipal and provincial levels, as well as some representatives from the academia. So before I hand over again to Maf, our moderator who will introduce the program and introduce the speakers to us, I want to say once more, on behalf of the Task Force Participatory Local Governance, welcome, good morning, and happy to see you all here today. Thank you very much. Maf?
Thank you for the warm welcome, Ate Dini. We would like also to recognize our participants coming from the different sectors, as mentioned by Ate Dini. We have non-government organization, people's organization, international NGOs, cooperatives, government agencies, local government units, academe, business sectors, and other individual stakeholders nandito po ngayong umaga. So nakikita niyo po sa screen ay ang mga list of organization who are with us today. So we thank you for making time, and we are delighted to be with you despite of some difficulties and limitation. I know we mentioned a while ago to turn off your video in our house rules video, but I think we deserve to see each other smile. So may I request everyone to turn on your video, and please feel free to say hi and hello to everyone. So hi everyone, Magandang umaga.
Hi.
Hello po. Good morning po.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning.
Ang ating
Morning.
And good morning.
ah, again,
Good
turn.
morning po. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Magandang umaga po sa lahat. At least even po nasa kanya-kanya tayong bahay or kanya-kanyang opisina. Thank you sa technology that allowed us to see each other and later learn from each other. So, maraming pong salamat ulit sa inyo. Kindly turn off your video and also your audio to avoid any unnecessary feedback. To know more about you, our dear participants, may we request you to answer our poll questions. So we have our 3 questions na ipapakita namin sa screen. Please to ayan. So how do you feel right now? Are you happy, excited, blessed, hopeful, thankful, curious? Sick? Are you feel sick right now? Are you lonely kasi nasa kanya lang kayong bahay? Are you hungry because it's early morning? But feel free to get your coffee, your water. Feel free to take your breakfast if hindi pa po kayo nakakapag-take ng inyong breakfast. So, wala na po nagsasabi ngayon na sick, no? Kasi pag sick po tayo, mukhang buong barangay na yung susugod sa atin. But anyway, feel free to answer the question, how do you feel right now? It is important to know before we start our session. Okay, we have 65% already answered our polling. Sige lang po, keep answering. Maraming excited siguro. Okay. Sige po. Aha, I will end the poll. So ngayon po, marami ang excited for today's session. Marami ang hopeful, ang thankful. Siguro nga, despite of the pandemic, we are here together because of the technology. Maraming curious, ano nga ba yung MC? Siguro ano nga ba yung MC 2021-54? So, next po. Ayan, so yan po yung ating results of our poll. Maraming, as I mentioned, marami po ang excited. Now, let's proceed to our next question. Where is your location right now? Nasaan po ba kayo? Are you here in NCR, National Capital Region? Are you in Luzon? Are you in Visayas? Are you in Mindanao? Or you're outside of the Philippines? Keep answering. So 69%, 70%. Okay, i-end ko na po ang poll. I'm gonna share with you the results. So karamihan po sa atin ay galing from outside NCR, which is the Luzon, and then National Capital Region. We have also participants from Visayas, and also we have participants from Mindanao. Again, welcome po sa ating session. And now for our last question. How familiar are you on the DILG MO on institutionalizing People's Council, or what we call the DILG MC 2021-054? Okay. Keep answering. Okay, we have 65% who already answered our poll question. Okay, sige po. Keep answering. Okay, I will end po our poll question. I'm gonna share with you the results. So 62% of us are somewhat familiar, has an idea, nakita na siguro ang dokumento, but does not know many details about it. At meron naman pong 37% who said na not really familiar or little or no knowledge of the MC or first time to hear about it. And we have 4% who are very familiar, maybe because galing ito sa DILG. And now, the reason why we're here, it's because of this. It's because the Department of Interior Local Government, or DILG, recently issued a memorandum circular mandating the LGUs to create a CSODES and institutionalize the People's Council in their locality. While the members of the Task Force for Participatory Local Governance see this a venue for participation, we also note some of the possible concerns that may arise in the implementation of the MC. So we, representing different sectors, should be aware of and have a better understanding of this initiative. So our session for this morning, we have two parts. So we have a presentation of the key features of the DILG MC and also the sharing of insights and perspectives from the well-experienced leaders to ensure that the genuine citizen participation through the process and how it can positively address emerging concern that we are currently facing now, particularly at the local levels. So let us start the ball rolling. Our first speaker will share about the silent features of the MC. She is the project development officer of the civil society organization, People's Participation Partnership Program under the Bureau of Local Government Supervision of the DILG. Please give a virtual applause for Ms. Millet Agata Aquino. Ms. Millet.
Hello, good morning po. So, good morning po sa ating lahat. My name is Millet Aquino from the CSO PPPP PMO of DILG, and I am the focal for MC 2021-054 as well as other CSO accreditation-related policies. First of all po, maraming salamat sa Task Force for Participatory Local Governance for inviting us to this and 2021-054 on the CSO desk and the People's Council, which we issued last May 18. So kung okay lang po, I will turn off my video muna to save on bandwidth. Ayan po. So as you may know, this policy was initially released last January as MC 2021-012. However, we from the Bureau of Local Government Supervision felt the need to amend it since there were a lot of unclear provisions, and so the regional focal persons would frequently call to ask questions on how to implement the policy. In addition, there was also a provision that concerned civil society networks, including CODE-NGO, which was the provision that required CSOs to secure clearance from the AFP and the PNP prior to joining the People's Council. And as pointed out by CODE-NGO, there is no precedence or legal basis to require CSOs to have security clearance before joining the People's Council. And in the history of the formation of existing People's Councils, such as those of Naga City and Dumaguete City, the AFP and the PNP have not been involved in such activities. And we also took into consideration the point raised by CODE-NGO that CSOs that have successfully acquired clearance may become duty-bound to the AFP and the PNP, which may inhibit them from voicing out dissent. And so the provision requiring clearance from the AFP and the PNP was really one of the provisions that we made sure to remove in the amended version. The purpose of this policy is to further engage CSOs by enjoining the local governments to have a CSO desk who will handle all CSO-related concerns. Usually, CSOs would find it difficult to lobby or to engage with the local government since there is no focal person or office they can forward their concerns to. This policy also aims to expand the participation of CSOs in local governance by institutionalizing the People's Council. The department recognizes the successes of existing People's Councils, most especially those of Naga City and Dumaguete City, in promoting good governance. And this is something we hope to replicate in all provinces, cities, and municipalities. We also see this as a way to expand or to increase the participation of CSOs beyond what is required in the local government code. For the legal basis of the policy, from the 1987 Philippine Constitution, Article 2, Section 23, recognizes the importance of CSOs in promoting the welfare of the nation. Article 13, Section 15 also protects their independence and autonomy to pursue their collective interests. And the following section also states that CSOs should be able to participate in all levels of decision-making of the government, from planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. And it also says that the state should facilitate the establishment of mechanisms that would ensure so. Furthermore, the local government code also promotes the importance of civil society in local governance. It also allows the LGU, through the local chief executive, to provide necessary assistance to CSOs for project implementation in their jurisdiction. Now, these are the only legal basis for MC 2021-054. And if we will notice, the laws are quite general. It does not specifically mention CSO desk or People's Council. Going back to the purpose of this policy, it says that the LGUs are enjoined to establish the CSO desk and institutionalize the People's Council. When we asked for comments and recommendations, CODE-NGO as well as the NAPC basic sectors said that we should use the word mandate or should instead of encourage or enjoin. We should have a stronger word so that LGUs will be compelled to comply. However, in as much as we want every province, city, and municipality to have one, without an organic law that mandates the establishment of CSO desk and People's Council, we can only enjoin or encourage the LGUs. We cannot mandate. Now, in January, there was a House bill that was passed on its third reading, House Bill 7950, which seeks to institutionalize the People's Council. And most of the provisions of this bill are similar to the ordinance of Naga City. To date, this bill is still pending at the Senate. So what we did is that we tried to align the memorandum circular with the House bill as much as possible, so that if ever it would be passed into law, there would only need to be little tweaking or adjustments to be made. But for now, we can only enjoin or encourage the LGUs. We cannot mandate. Now let's proceed to the general guidelines on establishing the CSO desk. Again, all provinces, cities, and municipalities are encouraged to create their respective CSO desks. The CSO desk will be in charge of documenting and addressing CSO-related concerns. The desk will also be the one to forward the received inquiries or complaints to the concerned offices and try to resolve issues that may arise. The CSO desk will also be responsible for sanggunian accreditation of CSOs under DILG MC 2019-72, and also next year when the LSBs are reconstituted. and the desk will handle all activities related to the People's Council and encouraging CSOs to participate in decision-making levels of the government. The CSO desk is headed by the CSO desk officer, who is designated by the local chief executive through an executive order. Now, as mentioned earlier, for MC 2021-12, CSO networks raised concerns on red tagging. So aside from the provision requiring clearance from the AFP and the PNP, another issue raised was that the desk officers may be used for profiling of the activities of CSOs. Now, to avoid red tagging and to ensure that the desk officer can coordinate and relate to concerns of civil society, we added a provision that recommends that the desk officer comes from the ranks of CSOs. So they should preferably have prior experience in being a member or partner of a CSO. And lastly, in order to uphold the independence of CSOs and to avoid nepotism, we also added a provision stating that the desk officer should not be related to the appointing or recommending authority. For the roles and responsibilities of the CSO desk officer, he or she will be facilitating the formation of the People's Council in coordination with the DILG and the Sanggunian. And he or she will make sure that CSOs are able to participate in the local government through constant coordination of activities of CSOs and the Sanggunian. And in line with the Magna Carta of Women of 2009, the CSO desk officer will ensure that women are able to participate in decision-making through at least 40% representation in various local government councils, committees, and other special bodies. The desk officer will also be the one to maintain the database of CSOs, and this will be helpful for the call for Sanggunian accreditation next year. And lastly, the desk officer will be the one to submit monitoring forms to the DILG field offices. Now let's proceed to the general guidelines when it comes to the People's Council. So let's start with the creation of the People's Council in cities and municipalities. All cities and municipalities are encouraged to create and institutionalize a People's Council. So again, we can only encourage or enjoin since there is no organic law yet. And the People's Council covers a wide scope of CSOs as they are composed of CSO representatives from accredited, registered, and recognized CSOs. Now, for the purposes of this policy, when we say accredited CSOs, these are CSOs that are represented in LSBs, including the Local Development Council, and they have undergone accreditation by the LGU in line with the DILG MC 2019-72. When we say registered, these are CSOs that have obtained registration from any of the 4 government entities that register CSOs. We have the Securities and Exchange Commission for development NGOs, POs, and other civic groups, the Cooperative Development Authority for co-ops, DOLE for labor unions and workers associations, and the Housing and Land Use Regulatory Board for homeowners associations. Now, when we say recognized, these are CSOs that meet the minimum requirements for membership. That is, they have an identified structure, and they also have their set of leaders, and they are allowed to participate in LSBs. However, they are not yet registered. Now, in order to join the People's Council, the CSO must obtain a certificate of authorization from the LGU. Now, the next question is, how can the CSO obtain a certificate of authorization? So first, the Sanggunian will issue a notice of call for the creation of the People's Council, and in line with the full disclosure policy, this notice shall be posted in at least 3 conspicuous places in the locality and posted in the website or social media page if applicable. After the issuance of the notice, all accredited, registered, and recognized CSOs shall be given ample time to submit the requirements. Now, what are these requirements? First, we have Annex A of the Memorandum Circular or the People's Council membership form. And this asks for basic information about the CSO, such as their contact details, their sectoral representation, and their services. Aside from that, they would also have to submit a letter of intent to be included as a member of the People's Council, any proof of existence in the locality for at least 1 year, their proof of organizational activities, their plan of activities for the year, copies of their constitution, bylaws, or articles of incorporation, their list of officers and members, and if applicable, their financial statement and declaration of assets and liabilities. And if the CSO is registered or accredited, they will also have to submit their certificate of registration or accreditation. Now, these requirements, they are in line with those stated in House Bill 7950. So all the applications will be received by the CSO desk officer, who will then evaluate them in close coordination with the Sanggunian based on the following criteria. First is if the CSO has clear organization purposes and objectives, including community organization and development, institution building, local enterprise development, livelihood development, capacity building, and similar development objectives and considerations. Another criterion is their project development implementation track record in the locality for at least 1 year. And lastly, the reliability of the CSO, as evidenced by the preparation of necessary documents duly certified by their board secretary. Now, the desk officer will then prepare the list of the qualified CSOs, and all of those that submitted complete requirements and met the criteria will be given a certificate of authorization. Now, 30 days after the issuance of the notice of call for the creation of the People's Council, the Sanggunian will then facilitate the formal creation of the People's Council. And in order to formally create the council, the Sanggunian would have to convene with the representatives of the qualified CSOs. And during this activity, this is where the CSOs may present the services they may offer to the LGU in implementing its activities. They may also negotiate with the Sanggunian on the rights and privileges they will have. And here, it is also important to talk about what forms of assistance the CSOs may need to fulfill their role. So this is a very crucial activity, since we know that LGUs are not always receptive to CSOs. It's very important that the DILG is present in the present. Now, the People's Council has been formally organized. They shall then file a petition for recognition to the Sanggunian, and in order to truly institutionalize the People's Council, the Sanggunian will then issue a certificate of recognition and pass a resolution that states the rights and privileges of the People's Council. Now, in order to uphold the independence of civil society, the People's Council will have the autonomy to determine their internal structure. They will be the one to come up with their own house rules and to elect their set of leaders. And the members of the council would also be the ones to select the representatives to various local government boards, committees, councils, and task forces. Now, in terms of membership, we have a provision stating that unless otherwise provided in the Sanggunian resolution or ordinance, CSO representation shall not exceed 25% of total membership, of the various local government boards, councils, committees, task forces, or special bodies, except for the Local Development Council, as the LG Code mandates at least 25% CSO representation. Now, this provision, again, it's in line with the House Bill 7950. But of course, for LDC again, the minimum is at least 25%. And in line with the Magna Carta of Women of 2009, in the selection of CSO representatives to various government bodies, the People's Council should ensure at least 40% membership of the women's sector. Now, for the roles and responsibilities, the People's Council shall ensure that CSOs are able to participate in local governance processes, such as planning and budgeting, policy making, and in the implementation of all local government projects. And depending on the rights and privileges granted to the People's Council through the Sangguniang Resolution, the People's Council will also be the one to propose legislation and vote at the committee level. And the People's Council should also ensure their independence and make sure that they are not using the council for partisan political activities or religious purposes. And lastly, the People's Council in cities and to the Provincial People's Council. Now, on that note, let's now go to the guidelines for the Provincial People's Council. So all provinces are encouraged to form a Provincial People's Council, which shall be recognized by the Sangguniang Panlalawigan through a resolution. And the nominees from the component Municipal and City People's Council within the province's jurisdiction will be the one to elect among themselves the members of the Provincial People's Council. So looking at this, they have similar roles and responsibilities as those of People's Council in cities and municipalities. And they also have a similar process. That is, they have to be recognized by the Sangguniang Panlalawigan. The only difference is that they shall be coming from the People's Council in component cities and municipalities. We also have a provision here that ensures the independence of the People's Council. Again, they should remain independent since they are, after all, still part of civil society. And if any of the People's Council and its member organizations are found to be engaging in partisan political activities or religious purposes, their recognition may be revoked by the Sangguniang if a petition was filed and if they are found to be using the council for such activities. Now, to summarize the roles and responsibilities of the local government units in provinces, cities, and municipalities. For the CSO desk, they should allocate funding and other necessary materials for the operation of the desk. And for the People's Council, the Sangguniang at the minimum should pass a resolution establishing a system of partnership with the CSOs. And it is also highly encouraged that they pass an ordinance on the People's Council, or what the LGUs have called the Empowerment Ordinance, since this will allocate resources and funding to support the council. And also, as mentioned by CODE-NGO in their comments and recommendations, this is what makes the People's Council partly supported by the government, but still functioning like a CSO and independent. Now, for the DILG field offices, they shall coordinate with the CSO desk officer on activities of CSOs and also attend the meetings whenever possible. And the field officers will also be the one to provide technical assistance and other capacity development activities in creating the CSO desk and the People's Council. It is also well within the mandate of DILG to ensure that the People's Council remains non-partisan. And lastly, the field officers will be the one to monitor activities of the People's Council and the CSO desk and submit reports to to the central office, to the Bureau of Local Government Supervision, through the regional offices. So that ends my presentation on DILG MC 2021-054. I will now turn it over back to Ms. Math. Thank you po.
Thank you, Ms. Millet, for sharing the key features of the DILG MC 2021-54. If you have any questions or clarification, please feel free to use our chat box. Our resource person will answer those questions later during our open forum. We also want to acknowledge some of the leaders and staff from the DILG BLGS. We have Director Vivian Swansing. We have also Sir Denver Calo, Mr. Sean Apostol, and also Ms. Juana Dab. Okay, now after hearing the key features of the DILG MC 2021-54, now we will hear insights from well-experienced leaders on how this initiative may address emerging concerns, particularly at the local levels, and how to ensure active participation in the local governance processes. Allow me to introduce our panel discussant one by one. Our first panel speaker is a strong advocate of participatory local governance. She was a former national coordinator of PhilDHRRA and now a research fellow of the Salle Institute of Governance. As we mentioned a while ago, both PhilDHRRA and LSIG are the active members of TFPLG. Please help me welcome Dr. Jing Lopez. Our second panel of reactor is a dynamic PO leader, a tireless policy advocate for alternative and pro-people policies and legislation in the fishery and peasant sectors. He is the president of the Pambansang Katipunan ng Samahan ng Kanayunan and National Federations of Farmers, Fisherfolks, and other rural-based organizations. She is also the vice chairperson of the National Anti-Poverty Commission of Basic Sector. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Ruperto or Kauper Alirosa. Our third panel of speaker is the active NGO leader in Negros Oriental and active campaigner for women empowerment. She is executive director of the Tuburan for Rural Women Empowerment and Development. She serves as a chairperson of the Dumaguete People's Council. She is none other than Ms. Nancy Estaliosa. To start our sharing, may I call on first Dr. Jing Lopez. And
good morning, everyone. Ma'am, can you be the one to screen share na lang? So, good morning po sa lahat. Good morning to the DILG team led by Ms. Vivian and also to my fellow panelists and advocates of participatory local governance. As a panelist, I decided to share with you the experience of PhilDHRRA. When I first joined PhilDHRRA, this was like 25 years ago, tagal na, no? In 1996. No? So I joined PhilDHRRA in order to help them implement the project that was a part of a bigger project called the Governance and Local Democracy Project. So PhilDHRRA then, we handled the NGO support component. So this was way back in 1996 to 1999. And in 1999, before it ended, gumawa kami ng case studies. No? We were helped by IPC in Ateneo. I think it was Biats Hupilio, I don't know her sa Tagal. No? But I want to share with you the experience kasi at least it was synthesized and in a way the lessons have been distilled and summarized for us. Baka magamit pa rin natin hanggang ngayon. Okay, next slide please. So as I mentioned, in 1996 again, we embarked on that project called GOLD. And as I mentioned, we handled the small component for NGOs. And the objective of that component of GOLD was to support the initiatives of NGOs in local governance. No? And one of the key strategies employed then is the formation of what we now call then NGO and PO networks. So hindi pa noon mainstream ang term na CSOs. No? So NGO, PO networks in a total of 38 project sites in 9 provinces, 3 in each island region, in 2 cities, no, in Jensan and Naga City, and in 27 municipalities. For every province kasi we selected 3 municipalities. No? And through the network, so that was really the goal, no, of the project to be set up. It was envisioned that NGOs and POs would have a distinct advantage in terms of pursuing their advocacy agenda in a more optimal and effective way. And the same can be alluded to, no, as a vehicle or mechanism to represent the NGOs and POs in the local governance activities, so in the locality, no, be that at the city, municipality, or province. No. So yeah, we can see here, no, the name of the networks, Molders in Jensan. We have that municipality, no, in Brooks Point in Palawan. And of course, Negornet, no, in Negros Occidental. So the case study focused on the three networks. Next slide, please. Okay, so toward the end, or yung palapit na yung 1999, we did this case studies. No? And the focus of the case studies, no, was to identify ano ba yung core patterns in network formation. No? And from the perspective of project management, ano ba yung requisitos, no, in forming and sustaining networks for effective NGO and PO participation in local governance. No? When we say core patterns, I think we were referring then to the issues. No, what were the issues that were pivotal in the processes of the formation of the network? No? And secondly, what were the factors that were instrumental in pulling together yung iba-ibang mga puwersa, no, divergent forces to form local networks. And thirdly, core patterns, ano yung mga growth points in the course, no, of the organization of networks, no, towards sustaining, no, the meaningful presence of these networks. And the case studies showed that participating in local governance processes is really an option and an opportunity, right? Kasi code mandated, no? And especially now that meron tayong MC, no, from the DILG. So it's an option and an opportunity. But by having a network that can collectively articulate what the people need and desire for their communities and could rally its constituency toward that direction in partnership, no, with, you know, stakeholders, no, like the LGU, the CSOs are said to have, no, that cutting edge. Meron silang lamang, no? So it's very important, no, for them to, you know, form, no, that network. Now we call it the People's Council, in order to afford, no, the individual NGOs and POs in the community to have that lamang, no, in terms of engaging government. Okay, so the studies covered 3 networks, Molders in Jensan, no? So they have the tagline, one network strategy. And then we have Brook Point's network of NGOs incorporated. Their tagline then was coalescing for environmental concerns, no? And lastly, of course, provincial level, Negornet, no, banding together for local governance in the Visayas. So we have a city, a municipality, and a provincial network, no, that were studied. Next slide, please, for the core patterns. Next slide. So what were the findings in terms of core patterns? No? So first, the importance of core group building. No? Kung wala pang nakatayo, no, na network doon, so talagang mag-umpisa ka, di ba? It's important to identify or to have that core group. No? The role of that core group, no, at least may 3 miyembro, no, to form the core. The role is that the core group members who can provide, no, the legs and the brains as well as the heart of the network. No, sila yung prime mover in the beginning. No? They can serve as an initiator with a vision, a prime mover. No? And for most networks, usually nag-umpisa siya dun sa person, tao, no, who became a rallying point of the other members. And that person, yung tao, no, is seen to be most credible, sincere, committed, also apolitical. who could work with anyone and everyone, willing to attend every meetings, and can encourage other members to transcend their institutional or their organizational biases and to think network-wide, no, or council-wide. Right? We're to use the term now. No? Okay. Another, next slide, please. Another core pattern is the need, no, for that shared vision, no, or that need to have a common issue. No? So the vision or the issue should be clear and owned, no, by the other members. No? So sa umpisa pa lang may ganung ano sila, no, may ganung pinagkakaisahan, no, na vision and issue. No? And identifying the issue and articulating this, no, within the group can really be time consuming. It was really time consuming. No? Why? Because the issue carried by each group or by every NGO or PO, di ba? Lahat yun ay urgent, lahat yun ay responsive, no, sa pangangailangan, no, ng sector, right? But coming up, no, with a single, most important or priority issue entails a process, no, and entails a lot of, dialogue and lots of listening among members in order to arrive at consensus. And without that time-consuming process, the core group may easily splinter, and the network will cease to develop into a real, authentic organization. Next slide, please. Okay, another core pattern here, of course, no, we all know this, no, the presence of resources. No? And we know, no, that kailangan may tao, human resources, time, finances, no, and other material goods, no, that are necessary inputs, no, to support the coming together of the different groups. No? Of course, no, this was project driven, no, kasi meron kang goal project and the resources have been provided, right? And the situation now is quite different, no? And I think we have to consider that. But still, kahit may proyekto na, members shall contribute resources, like they can bring snacks, no, for meetings. They can also share office supplies, no, and communication, venues, no, or even human resources, no, the skills, no, that the staff, no, or the personnel of an NGO, no, can share with the network. However, kasi may goal, no, so external resources including funds and people, no, that were outside of the group, diba? So merong project team, no, merong project team from Manila, may project team, no, from the regional office, no, PhilDHRRA, para ganun, no. So that played a significant role in bringing the network its shape, considering the meager resources, no, of its members. And in the experience of the three networks, PhilDHRRA provided funds, no, technical assistance and capacity development, acted as a buffer and provided the legwork for linking the different groups, no, that allowed these groups to come together. Okay, next slide, please. So, medyo highlight to, no, yung time and space. I want to insert here, no, yung safe space, no. So time and safe space, no, for commitment building for the members. So it's important, no, that the local groups, local NGOs and POs, no, were provided, no, with the time, the process, and safe spaces to work together, because by having those, no, they exhibited better chances of surviving. And developing that commitment, no, by the members gave them a sense of ownership, and it helped the individuals, no, to transcend their specific institutional biases. Molders, for example, no, Jensen realized, no, that beyond forming the core group, it was important for their members to develop commitment to the vision, or else the network would not flourish. Next slide, please. So another core pattern is seizing the aha moment. Ano yung mga aha moment na yon, no? So these were the sparks, no, in the life of the network, no, and we call that, no, the aha moment. And yung mga sparks na yan, it could be the idea, no, that had spelled a significant move, no, for the network to really move forward, no. And these aha moments came at various times and forms. So for example, Molders, learning from the experience of Naga City, Naga City had their empowerment ordinance, di ba, in 1995. So I think toward 1997 or toward 1998, molders also developed their own, no, but really in a way learned from the experience of Naga City. So pushing for the empowerment ordinance brought them together, and that emphasized the importance of having a network. In the case of the Brooks Point in Palawan, no, ano sila they were members of the ECAN board, no, the Environmentally Critical Areas Network. Palawan kasi, di ba, sa province has been declared, no, merong RA, no, that declared it as an ECAN province. Hence, no, yung mga munisipyo niya ay may mga ECAN board din na tinayo, no, and the members of BPNNI participated, no, they became members of the ECAN board, no, and you know that got them to work together, no. And of course, no, for Negornet, of course, si Bert Aquino, I think he's not here, no, but somebody I think is representing Negornet, no. You know, early on, hindi pa sikat ang Negornet, no, but early on, during that time, it was the organizing activities, no, for the Negros Oriental Alliance for Sustainable Development, or NASUD, no, that led to the signing of the municipal mayors in the province to a covenant, no, to promote sustainable development. That ushered, no, the network, Negornet, into prominence and the province-wide recognition by the LGUs. So remember, di ba, nung time na yon, our president then was President Ramos. And now we have the SDGs. No? Before SDGs, we have the MDGs. No? But before the MDGs, we had the Philippine Agenda 21. No, during those years, no? And of course, the Sustainable Development Agenda was really mainstream up to the LGU level. So in the case of Negornet, it was, no, that thrust, no, of the government, and NASUD was the one spearheading, no, that you know, campaign with the LGUs, no, bit ang Negornet. So that brought Negornet to prominence at the provincial level. Next slide, please. So the aha moments, no? And now, of course, malapit ako matapos. So yung sustaining activities, what were the sustaining activities, no, of the networks then, no? Remember, wala namang pondo na binibigay sa kanila for sustainability, no, yung goal, no? So they have to work on their own, no? So in the case of molders, no, their engagement, no, with the LGU and the CapDev activities. So for example, they help, no, the planning office, no, the CPDO, in drafting, no, the governance manual, no, the participatory governance manual. See, they had that time, no, and also they participated in drawing up, no, the city annual investment program and the city flagship programs, no. Of course, they were also represented, no, in the Regional Development Council in the region. And they did capacity building activities in terms of particularly, no, proposal writing for members and setting up, no, yung financial system, no, for molders. For BPNNI, their capacity building activities, no, for internal consolidation, and they're doing their meetings on a regular basis to keep their organization active, no? Of course, for na-mention dito yung Basod, no? Dagdag lang yan, no? That's Bay City, no? That's one municipality in Negor. So they were able to sustain their operations, so kasi they were very linked, no, with Negornet, and in particular, active ang kanilang women's and farmers groups, no? And I think there was you know, working together, no, between the provincial Negornet, no, and Basod. And lastly, yung Negornet, no, yung participation, no, in planning, in development planning in the city of Dumaguete and the provincial government. So as early as that time, naka-mainstream na si Negornet, no, sa development planning at the city and provincial level. And next slide, please. Building yung credibility naman, no, as a core pattern, the need to develop na yung credibility ng network, diba? Parang hindi pwedeng wala, no? And credibility does not happen overnight. But it has to be built over a span of time, no? Kung meron ng nakatayo na local network, or if the local network initiator is really that good, no? And it goes without saying that the credibility of the network may also depend on the qualities of its leaders. So kasi ang mga leaders, sila kasi mukha ng network, right? Or ng council. And an important lesson learned here is that in dealing with the issues with government might indicate a mode of working in local governance. So that's quite different from the usual confrontational approach or stance. Diba? So, sanay kasi yung mga NGOs and POs sa confrontational approach. No? But when you do PLG, medyo iba yung approach. No? And again, I want also to emphasize learning here that a confrontational stance may be done, may be adopted, for as long as natatansya ng network that it is strong enough to stand against the LGU. But if not yet, it might be best to seek for a more creative solution to the issue. Yeah, kasi mahirap pag confrontational, magsusunugan ka agad ng tulay, di ba? So, burning bridges might spell the end of the relationship. Okay, the next two slides I think refer to our learning from the perspective of yung program management. So, meron kaming program requisites. So, parang if it were a program, given a chance na gawin uli yun, ito yung mga natutunan ng PhilDHRRA, na there is important to do the selection of partners quite systematically. So, a systematic assessment of the organized groups and their capabilities is needed. Dahil kailangan mo mag-identify ng sino pwede mag-lead, and then what are the organized groups and their capabilities in the area. And it's also worth mentioning that the focus need not necessarily be on local governance kaagad, or solely. What was found vital was that the willingness of the organization to participate in the process, and not consider as a motivation yung revenue generation lang. So kung yun ang maging motivation ng lahat to join, for example, a local CSO network, then might be hard to keep the momentum and really sustaining and keeping the organization as authentic as it can be or it need be. And then another lesson from the perspective of program management in terms of next slide please, in terms of selecting, for example, yung which sites or areas yung isasama mo. So work in an area with a high likelihood of success. So maybe doon sa rolling out siguro, it's important to medyo yung rolling out, baka pwedeng on a parang graduating ba yan or a gradual basis. So parang you select areas na medyo may mga low-lying fruits, Yun. And then this is important to also get information on the capability of local partners. Kasi limited yung resources, and hence, so there's a need to develop a system in identifying areas kung saan pwede umpisahan yung initiative for CSO networking. And second to the last, from the program perspective again, we were reminded na we have to also keep track of the cycle and timing of activities. Kasi looking at a CSO network, meron yan dalawang purpose, di ba? To work with issues through PLG, and there's also that agenda of the network to develop itself as a local network. Diba? So meron siyang organizing dapat, diba? So it will be naive not to just assume that once you have identified an area na merong interested na mga CSOs to be part of the council, that they would already have the needed capacity and motivation and yung pamamaraan to engage government. So in our case, hindi pa pwedeng mawala yung pag-alam, ano yung kailangan sa social preparation, when you organize CSO network, right? So ito yung appraisal of the local organizations or doing organizing and promotion of concepts of PLG, And then phase 2 would be yung deliberate na pag-organize, yung infrastructure, social infrastructure development. Part of that entail capacity building and a lot of social interactions with the LGU and other stakeholders. And then, of course, yung formation of the local network. Ito yung magde-decide na sila na ipo-formalize nila no, yung kanilang network. No? So that may require, the network to be registered. They have to have a set of officers, no, and to engage government on a more formal, parang basis or level, no. And okay, so next slide, resources. Alam na natin ito lahat, no, na kailangan natatansya na natin no, yung requirement no, for resources, no, planning for the resource needs or the resource demands, no, prior to the determination of what can be done in terms of the activities, no, the tasks, no. And of course, no, to include yung mga technical inputs. I don't will say technical inputs, no, ito yung mga sanay tayo, no, yung mga dinidevelop natin na mga framework for PLG, no, yung mga indicators, diba? So that can really be part of the technical inputs, no, that can be valuable, no, in organizing networks, no. Of course, kung meron financial inputs, no, and human resources. And last slide on sustainability, no. Okay, so ensuring sustainability. And it's very important no, kasi it's linked no, with the continued operations no, of CSO networks or councils. And there are ways, no? There were 3 ways no, by which local networks no, can become more viable. First thing, the CSO members or the CSO network members no, or the network itself can become implementing partners of the government. Since meron kasing AIP, di ba? Annually, may mga program at proyekto ang local government where CSOs no, would have the expertise to implement and therefore can apply no, as implementing partner of the local government. No? Secondly, kung may swerte, no, they can get funds no, from external sources or funding agencies. No? And lastly, they should not stop no, from looking into their own internal capacity to produce no, their own resources. So pwede silang mag-fundraising, no? Pwede rin sila mag-enter into income-generating projects. No? The way, for example, cooperatives do their thing. So I think that's the last slide. Thank you, everyone, for the attention.
Maraming salamat, Dr. Jing, for sharing your experiences and also your insight, particularly on the key prerequisites in forming a strong network for them to participate in the local governance processes, especially at this time that we will, the DILG now institutionalized the formation of the People's Council. Again, if you have any questions or clarification, please feel free to use our chat box to share your concerns or clarifications. Now, let us proceed with our next discussant, none other than Ka-Upper Alirosa. Ka-Upper?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Mapi. Sorry, wala akong PowerPoint. Mag-share lang ako. Pero bago ako mag-share ng aking insights, gusto ko munang bumati ng magandang umaga sa ating lahat, sa mga government and CSO representatives na nandito ngayon. Good morning po. At sa event organizer, maraming salamat sa pagkakaimbita, no? Bigyan ng pagkakataon maimbita dito sa CSO Talk na ito. Good morning to Director Vivian Swansing, Ma'am Millet, no? And other DILG representatives na nandito ngayon. Nice meeting you po again, no? Online. Naalala ko po nung simula pa lamang ng taon nang ilabas ng DILG ang Memorandum Circular number 2021-01-012 ay agad na nag-organize ang mga batayang sektor ng National Anti-Poverty Commission o NAPSI, no, ng isang kapihan online session. Yun ay upang pag-usapan itong mekanismo na may malaking epekto sa mga batayang sektor at mga recognized civil society organization sa ating bansa. At dito sa unang kapihan na sinagawa namin noong Marso, isa lang ang napatunayan namin. No? Nakikinig sa mga batayang sektor ang DILG. Sa mga nakita naming issues at saka sa rekomendasyon na ibinahagi namin, lahat ito ay masusing na konsidera ng DILG na siyang nagresulta sa amendment at ito nga ay ang Memorandum Circular number 2021-054 na inilabas ng DILG nitong nakalipas na quarter. Ang National Anti-Poverty Commission o NAPSI ay nilikha higit sa 2 dekada na ang nakakalipas sa pagkakaisa ng mga batayang sektor upang magkaroon ng direktang plataforma ang mga organisadong kinatawan ng mga mahihirap at mabigyan ng boses na siyang magtataguyod sa kapakanan ng mga maralitan nating kababayan. Sa 23, 23 years na po ang NAPSI, na pagkakatatag nito sa pamamagitan ng pagpapatupad ng Republic Act number 8425 o yung Social Reform and Poverty Alleviation Act of 1998, ang mga kinatawan ng batayang sektor ay nanatiling totoo sa mga sinumpa naming tungkulin na siyang nagsisiguro na may accountability at transparency sa ating pamahalaan. Sa malaking larawan, kaming mga kinatawan ng batayang sektor ang siyang tumatayong bantay upang ang pamahalaan natin ay hindi maging kumpiyansa at manatili talagang tagapagpatupad ng kung ano ang mga nararapat. Kami rin ay hindi tumitigil sa pakikipag-ugnayan sa pamahalaan. Hindi rin umiikot dito lamang sa NAPSI ang aming engagement. Sa pagdaan ng taon, ang dami namin pinuproseso upang ang representation ng mga batayang sektor ay magpatuloy kahit wala na kami dito sa NAPSI. Isa sa tinutuntungan namin na agenda na nakalinya sa multidimensional approach ng governance ng social reform agenda, pangunahin namin tinitingnan o tinutulak ang participatory governance. Kasama rito ang lobbying for the inclusion of basic sector representatives sa cabinet cluster bilang presidential appointees at inclusion sa regional development councils o RDCs at iba't ibang mekanismo o subcommittee nito. Sa kasalukuyan ay may higit sa 20 na council members na representative rin ng RTC, either ito man ay basic sector or private sector representatives. Sa hanay pa lamang ng mga council members ay meron na kaming initial na nasurvey na sa higit 50 na nasa hanay ng provincial, city and municipal development councils o LDCs. Meron din tayong mga representatives ng iba't ibang government structure and mechanism from national level down to barangay level at covering na rin ang iba't ibang mga sectoral representatives or representation mula sa agriculture, labor, women, PWD, LDRCs, MCs, children at iba't ibang local special bodies. na nakasaad sa local government code natin. Lahat, labas pa rito ang mga member organization or affiliates ng mga recognized organizations na siyang na-elect sa National Sectoral Assembly ng NAPSI. Meron din kaming pinag-uusapan ngayon na blueprint on local sectoral engagement para sa pagtataguyod ng sectoral formations mula sa convening ng in-bank at the national level with the President as chair of NAPSI hanggang sa National Technical Action Officer and Technical Working Group o TWD, Regional Basic Sector Coordinating Council o RBSCC hanggang sa Local Poverty Reduction Action Team o ERPRAT para sa pagpapatupad ng mga programa na nasa ilalim ng Magna Carta of the Poor. Itong Memorandum Circular number 54 series of 2021 ng DILG ay tinuturing namin na malaking ambag sa tinutulak naming basic sector representation sa national and local government structures and mechanisms. Ang nais lamang namin sa lahat ng ginagawa at pinag-uusapan natin, isabuhay natin ang slogan ng basic sector sa NAPSI na nothing about us without us. Maraming salamat po at magandang umagang muli sa ating lahat.
Maraming salamat, Ka-Oper, also for highlighting the important role or the crucial role of the civil societies in local development. So malinaw na siya, malinaw sa legal framework natin na nakasaad ang ano ang importanteng or bahagi na ginagampanan ng mga civil society organization in development, and we should ensure the implementation of that mga legal frameworks. Now, to proceed with our last discussion, may call on Miss Nancy Estelioso. Miss Nancy.
Good morning, everyone. Wait. Teka, Mafi.
It's okay, ma'am.
Oo. Wait. Anyhow, I wish I had emailed this to you earlier because I'm not very techy. Wait. How do I do this, Ma'am?
Sige, ma'am, naka-open na po sa inyo?
Oo, naka-open na.
Sige, ma'am, share screen po kayo.
Share screen.
Hindi po natin kanina.
Wala. Wait. I'll do it again, okay?
Okay po. While doing some technical thing po, all the questions po ay nakuha na namin. Our resource person will answer all your questions or like concerns later on po sa ating open forum. So feel free again to share your insights about the MC 2021-54 and also the sharing of our panel of discussants. Your thoughts, your clarifications, your concerns are highly appreciated to make our discussion more productive this morning. Mahalaga po ang boses ng bawat isa para mas mapagtagumpayan po natin yung ating important role in local development.
Bert, nagliso jud ko.
Ay,
Oo. Oo. Sige, ako na lang di-send kay di man ko kabalo mo open mga 1 minute ra ni Bert ha. Ako na lang i-send niya kurog ko.
keep keep asking some questions. We will provide po the presentations later on, as mentioned by my colleague. So we will share with you the link for our post-activity or evaluation form. And then to those who will submit their evaluation form, we will provide all the presentations of our resource person. So keep sharing your thoughts and all. So maybe while still fixing our...
I emailed it to you, please.
So maybe, ma'am, gusto niyo po, can we have a 2-minute health break? You can take your health break na po tayo, or you can get your coffee or water, and then we can now have our... So para lang po makuha natin yung presentation po. Sige po, after 2 minutes, babalik po tayo to start again our session. So, and I think nandito na rin po yung presentation. Sige lang po, health break lang po tayo ng 2 minutes. We will start by 10:53. Okay. Now to share with us her insights and perspectives about the new Memorandum Circular 2021-54. I call on again the chairperson of the Dumaguete People's Council, Ms. Nancy Istalioso. Ma'am Nancy.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, first of all, thank you for inviting us to share our experience in establishing People's Development Council in Dumaguete City, and also sharing our actual experience in participatory local governance in Dumaguete and the province of Negros Oriental. To be honest, there are two persons who are very knowledgeable in this aspect, and I'm sure you know him. First is Bert Aquino, who was very pivotal in the passage of Ordinance number 84, the Empowerment Ordinance in Dumaguete City. And second, the late Vice Mayor Alangel Cordova, who just died last month due to COVID, unfortunately. He was the author of Ordinance number 62, or the establishment of the Dumaguete City People's Council. I am more involved in women's organizing and in advocacy on gender equality and gender issues in Dumaguete and the province of Negros Oriental. Well, I'm also a member of the board of NEG-ORNET, and if we recall, we issued a statement on the memorandum circular earlier published prior to 54. I think that was 12, in regard to NGOs required to have clearances from the PNP and AFP. And the board of NEG-ORNET, through the chair, made a statement, a very strong statement against that memorandum circular. So I'm sure most of you have heard about the Dumaguete experience. And during the open forum, I hope Bert Aquino is here, can help me, because I came later. In other words, the two ordinances were passed already, and after the ordinance were passed, I was elected as the chair of the People's Council. And my participation was in the formation already, and the formulation of the People's agenda, development agenda in the city, the formulation of the internal rules and other organizational matters. Okay, so this is just this slide is only about to reiterate no ang mandate, the mandate, or just to reiterate that the NGOs and POs and the sectors have actually the right to organize, no? That is stated in our constitution. And then okay, next slide please. This was stated already, so this is just to reiterate that the state actually supports us, no, the people's initiatives, and should also be included, no, in the mechanisms. There should be a mechanism to support people's participation. Next slide, please. And of course, the local government code of 1997 also clearly states that the people's organizations become active partners in development. Next slide. So in 2012, the Dumaguete People's Empowerment Ordinance was passed. This is what I said, that Bert Aquino was very pivotal in the enactment of this ordinance. And it is also worth mentioning that PhilDHRRA and CODE-NGO had a big support in the passage of, I think, in the development of this ordinance together with Bert Aquino. Next slide. And one important provision in this ordinance, empowerment ordinance, is section 12, the organization that the formation of the People's Development Council in Dumaguete City. Okay, next slide. And of course, also in this section, it is provided that we have our own structure and internal rules to really show our independence. So the workings of the PDC as articulated in the ordinance, meron talagang sarili na structure and rules and operations ang People's Development Council. Next slide. And also, sa section 14, i-accredit din, no, one PDC in Dumaguete City, okay, and duly recognized by the Sangguniang Panglungsod. Next slide. And the composition of this are actually ang People's Development Council are not only the NGOs, the POs under the sectoral desk, but also NGOs and POs accredited, recognized in Dumaguete City. Okay. I will not share more on this because I know that this has been discussed already in the past. So this is just a brief walkover about the ordinance, People's Empowerment Ordinance. Okay, next slide. And then after that, in 2012, no, in 2016, na-enact yung Ordinance number 62. This was authored by the late Vice Mayor Alan Gel Cordova. And this is entitled Ordinance Institutionalizing the Democratic Participation of Civil Society Organizations in Policy Formulation at the Legislative Department of Dumaguete City. Okay. So ito na talaga yung ordinance wherein yung civil society organizations are actually represented already in the standing committees of the Sangguniang Bayan. Okay, next slide. So the salient features of this ordinance, yung committee membership, no? It is said in the ordinance that not exceeding 60% of the standing committees. So in the past year, 3 years ago, the Dumaguete City Sanggunian had 18 standing committees, but it was reduced to 11. And in these 11 standing committees, we have 2 representatives each in these committees. Okay. And of course, yung may mga rights talaga yung mga representatives at the committee level. So they can vote, we can actually propose an ordinance, no? At the committee level. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, we have also access to records, no? And we have also the right to attend in plenary session of the City Council. Okay, next slide. So this is just a process of how we were able to actually implement Ordinance number 84 and number 62 in our participation in the People's Development Council. So we chose the People's Development Council, kami talaga yung nag-choose, no, among ourselves, the representatives to the standing committees. So we choose among ourselves, no, and then we submitted to the Sanggunian, and then they were able to actually attend. However, in our monitoring and evaluation of our participation in the Sanggunian, it turned out that result of that evaluation showed that there were no meetings called, the reason that we were not able to attend. So also, yung mga representatives are asserting to the Sanggunian members, especially the chairpersons of the committees, to conduct meetings, no? Because in the last 3 years, siguro mga 3 committees lang out of the 18 actually called for committee meetings. Okay, so yun yung process na yun. Anyway, next slide. Next slide, please. So in the last 3 years, I think 5 years in our kanang engagement with the local government units, I would like to share with you some aha moments and also some moments where we wanted to assert more, no? But first of all, I would like to share with you some gains of the PDC in Dumaguete. So number 1, the PDC provided a space to discuss or ventilate common issues and concerns. And it was also this platform where we made our collective agenda, no, and presented it to the Sanggunian. So before the PDC, there was no platform na wherein the civil society, the people's organizations, and the marginalized sectors come together, band together, and collectively present this agenda to the local legislative body. Okay. And next slide. And also, the issues and problems of the sectors, no, were discussed in the formal structure of government. In the past, our advocacy, it was more on advocacy level outside of the formal government structure. But with the PDC, the PDC now able to bring these sectoral issues to the committee level. And in fact, there were 2 ordinances passed, the TODA ordinance of the pedicab drivers and also the dual franchise ordinance. And right now, we are cooking on something at the committee level on the freedom of information as promoted by PCOO and PhilDHRRA. So I think this is a milestone in the actual engagement of the People's Development Council and the local legislative body of Dumaguete City. And also, I think this is also a milestone, no, in participatory local governance, because in a way, I think the PDC shaped the way the local government officials think about civil society participation, about accountability, responsiveness, and transparency in governance. in a way, I cannot say that 100%, but at least now the sectoral representatives are sitting at the committee level and side by side with the local legislative bodies, they are discussing issues that was once in the periphery. In the periphery, now they are already in the formal structure of government. So in a way, we also help shape the mindset of the local officials. One good example of this is our participation in the God focal system. So fortunately, I am in the advocacy of gender equality and gender issues, but I am representing in the main as PDC chairperson in the God focal system. So right now, we have proposed a referral system on violence against women in the city of Dumaguete. And we are looking forward that this will be institutionalized. This referral system on violence against women is a system to protect women against VOW from the barangays up to the city level. And in the city level, there's this multidisciplinary team. So in the multidisciplinary team, the victim will not go from one agency to another, but rather in one stop shop group or the team to address the concerns of the woman. So hopefully this can be made into an ordinance soon. But this is also our gain in our engagement with the local government unit. And also, we advocated for a lawyer for women in Dumaguete City and Women's Protection Center in Dumaguete City. So I hope that in the coming months, this will be institutionalized. But of course, there are also challenges, because in our participation, the CSOs, we are not familiar with the workings of government. So when we started engaging with them, when our representatives were sitting in the committee level, we were kind of learning in the process how government works. But anyway, we are a work in progress, and but that is our need to really understand how the local government works. And also, we have identified that we also need some skills on parliamentary procedure and ordinance writing, especially those sitting at the committee levels. And the CSO need to exercise assertion and show confidence in articulating agenda or issues. The pedicab driver representative or the urban poor women representative sit in the committee level and they speak in English and they would dress up well, and then our representatives sometimes are kanang awed by these politicians, but our representatives of course know their issues by heart, and they also bring forward with them the agenda of the PDC. So these are something that we have to work on, so that we can have an effective and meaningful participation at the local legislative body. Okay, slide please. So in our practice, we have discussed among ourselves in the core group of the PDC. We browsed about the ordinance of the memorandum circular. Number one, the first is the 12th, and this one the 54. And we can see that I think some provisions of this memorandum circular somewhat clip the wings of the PDC or the civil society in general, participation. In particular, we find that the provision on requiring the NGOs and POs of that documents is some kind of a tedious and duplication, because kanang immediately after the election, we submit our accreditation, and then when the PDC is organized, you are again required to submit these documents. So we think that it is burdensome for the POs especially. and also the certificate of authorization. So in general, we can say why do we need these provisions when the PDC is an independent body? So with these provisions, the Sanggunian has control over our existence as People's Development Council. No, because we already undergo that process of accreditation. So we can probably exist or participate. But why more? No? So for us, it's a kind of a control, and we see that our participation in the local governance is our basic right. So the role of the Sanggunian is to facilitate good participation or easy participation as provided for in the Constitution and in the local government. So it is our thought, it is in our thoughts that these provisions should be scrapped for being curtailing the fruitful and meaningful participation of PDC in the local Sangguniang body. And also, the sectoral desk has a role in helping the Sanggunian in the selection. I think the main what you call this, the power of the sectoral desk is derived from the main provision in 6.2.2.2 about submission of documents and certification of authorization and submitting the final list of NGOs and POs who can participate. So I think it should be taken out altogether, because the idea is really to facilitate the exercise of the basic rights of the basic sectors in local governance. Okay, next slide, please. So, okay, this is yun talaga ang ano namin, ang comment namin sa Memorandum Circular number 54, no? Kung pwede sana, mas-scrap talaga yon, kasi based on practice, meron naman talagang efficient na way of accrediting legitimate NGOs and organizations in our area. So I think other councils will support us on this. Okay, so ano talaga ang need and or the importance of PDC based on the experience and practice of Dumaguete City. So number one, in the economic aspect, no, before, this may sound a cliche, but this is not cliche based on the practice of Dumaguete City, kasi nga yung mga issues ng mga sector, ng mga urban poor, ng mga fisher folks, ng mga pedicab drivers na dati ay nasa periphery lang, advocacy lang, but right now they are being part already in the planning process of the local government unit, no? Although na merong mga challenges, but at least we become part of the planning in the programs, projects, and activities in the local government of Dumaguete City. And in the political aspect, no? Next slide. The thing is, ang duty bearers are also pushed to recognize the role and participation of the people in participatory governance, and they are pushed to really practice, no, and recognize good governance, transparency, accountability, and responsiveness to the issues of the people. Thus, change the present practice of a top-heavy governance. So I can say that in a way, looking back 10 years ago, when there was no participation, formal participation of the civil society in a form of a council in local governance, but right now, because of our participation, somehow we changed the mindset of the local officials. And finally, yung implication din na because of this unity of the NGOs and POs, because of there is already a platform, common agenda, no, we are strengthened, and in this strength the people finds power, no, the members of the PDC find power in pushing forward our agenda at the local level. So, yun, ang PDC ay work in progress. Meron tayong mga gains, but we have challenges. But I think the good thing is we already have the ordinance. We already have what you call these ordinances to as a gain, no, of our practice. But I think it has to be mentioned also na we have to develop more women leaders, especially at the PO level. Yung sa Magna Carta na 40% out of the many, almost 100 POs here and NGOs, I think not even 10%. It's a good thing na yung first chairperson ng PDC is a woman, but there is still a challenge that more women participation at the PDC level. But even if this is a work in progress, I think this is a gain for all the people, the marginalized sectors here in Dumaguete City, that our voices be heard and we can participate in decision making. Okay, thank you.
Maraming salamat, Miss Nancy, for sharing your first-hand experience doon sa Dumaguete People's Council. And we also recognize your some constructive criticism in the memo and also the implications of this also in Negros Oriental, particularly based on your experience. And now we will now proceed to the most awaited part of our session, which is the open forum. May I request our resource persons, Ms. Millet, Dr. Jane Lopez, Kauper, and also Ms. Nancy. I will share with you some of the questions. So, kinategorize ko na yung mga questions na pumapasok. So, let's proceed first. I think ito ay particularly on the MC, on the requirements of the People's Council. There are some concerns or clarification on the requirements of the People's Council. As mentioned by Sir June of Process Bohol, and also some clarification from Kid Banas. So they pertains to the requirements of joining the People Council supposedly does not include anymore the submission by bylaws and other requirements. Especially because this somehow redundant already, and it should only be a letter of intent from the application of and People Council membership form. And also sinasabi nga din ni Kid Banas na accreditation should only be required of the POs and NGOs who will seek for a financial assistance from the LGUs, and most POs and NGO do not seek financial help, but only a platform for the articulations of their concern and advocacy. So ano po yung masasabi po ninyo when it comes to concern on the requirements? Ms. Millet?
Yes po. To differentiate po, yung sa MC 2019-72, that's for accreditation of CSOs for representation in LSBs. Tapos yung dito nga po, it's People's Council na hindi nga po mandatory. Yung sa 2019-72, that's under the law, that's mandatory. Now, yes, we do recognize naman po na baka nga po very stringent yung requirements dito. Pero yung goal po kasi dito sa People's Council, we want even those who are not accredited, those who are merely recognized to be able to participate in local governance processes. That's why, again, we ask for those kinds of requirements po.
Okay. I think it is also related with some requirements galing ulit kay Sir June ng process ball, is there any sanction or penalties for CSOs not submitting a requirements at the CSO desk for accreditation purposes and not participating in the People's Council and other local special bodies at the LGU, but still continue to operate their programs and projects at the community? Many CSO directly implement projects at the barangay without being accredited by the LGUs. Who monitors the non-compliance of CSOs? So we experience here that more CSOs are listed, but only few are recognized and accredited by the province, cities, and municipal level. I think it's also related to the question of Dinileno Campo from CODE-NGO. Can the CSO participate in local governance even if they are not members of the People's Council? If the People's Council established in the LGU, will it then become the only track whereby CSOs participate?
Yeah, CSOs would still have the freedom to implement projects na hindi naman po kailangan ng accreditation or permission para sa lahat ng activities nila. Yung para po sa MC na ito, it's for the partnership between CSOs and POs and the LGU para po makasali sa People's Council. Now, so on that note, kung ganun po, wala pong penalty for CSOs who will not submit requirements for People's Council.
So, may isa pang clarification I think related doon sa pag-participate in the People's Council. This is from the DILG Apayao, Ms. Marina Senu. Clarification lang po, as clearly presented, LGUs are just enjoined to designate CSODES and organize People's Council. Are we made to understand that the compliance to the circular is just optional based on the legislative enactment passing of the resolution or enactment of ordinance? Maraming salamat.
Okay, since wala po tayong batas stating that we have to establish CSO desk and People's Council, for now we can only enjoin or encourage. So hindi po natin pwede gawing mandatory. Now during our regional rollouts, we've also been receiving a lot of feedback sa mga field officers and regional focal persons na doon sa ibang cities and sa ibang municipalities especially, nahirapan sila to see how they can form People's Council, especially since very few yung CSOs in the locality. So we also recognize na iba-iba yung konteksto ng mga locality. Baka in some areas, there are few CSOs that, and so baka walang need for the People's Council, baka hindi nila nakikita yon. So, ayun po, kung ganun po, we also directed our field officers to submit reports on that na for these areas, People's Council, CSO desk were not created due to these reasons. So, we will use those po in enhancing our policies and the implementation.
Another question from Father Murphy. What is the difference between the local or regional development council with the People's Council CSO? And it is related to the question from Ms. Lisa Lim, how will the PDC relate to other council where people, organization participate? Example, pharmacy, etc. So anong kaibahan nun, ng ganong klaseng structure na meron tayong mga local development council at meron naman itong People's Council?
For the People's Council, we want it to be covered by all sectors. So yung sa pharmacy and the other sectors, yung sa mga co-op, we want it to be, kumbaga, isang general assembly na nandun yung iba't ibang sector. And of course, if with the other networks and the organizations created, we want them to work together for in passing ordinances and other policies po.
Okay. Sige. Ito naman ay related about some concerns when they have the People's Council. Kanina binanggit ng concerned citizens of Abra for good government that the DILG should strictly implement the guidelines, especially at the provincial and municipal levels. The LGUO should not be influenced or dictated by the LGU head or official. The process should be followed accordingly. At related ito sa question ni Sir Kid Banas, now what is, and also some questions that we gathered from the registration about how baka magamit ito. So what is the guarantee that this initiative will not be hijacked by the local government officials in the same manner that the politicians hijack the party list system? How can the people councils prevent or avoid elite capture and from being politicized? What is the manner of the selection of the council members from the sectors that confirm with non-discrimination principle and avoid political interference? Ms. Millet, it's about how can we ensure that wala ito political interference.
Hello.
Sige po. And then after ni Ms. Millet, si Ms. Jean.
Yes po. For this one po, since sabi nga po namin, we want even those who are recognized, the smaller CSOs to be able to participate. So I think that's one way na hindi lang siya dominated by the accredited CSOs, those who are already active ngayon po sa local governance processes. Now for the other one po na to ensure the independence at hindi siya ma-impluwensyahan ng politicians, I think our provision stating that the recognition can be revoked, and that's also within the roles and responsibilities of the People's Council to ensure their independence. So another thing that we also did is to instruct our DILG field offices na mag-file ng reports if there are such activities conducted po.
Okay, Ma'am Jean, may dagdag po ba kayo on that?
Yeah. I'm noting yung ibang mga response suggestions doon sa chat page natin. And nire-reiterate no ni Jane. Hi Jane. Yung importance of social preparation, yung merong common development agenda, yung mga CSOs, di ba? Tsaka yung, they are also capacitated to engage as a council. I think that malinaw yung kasi yung intention ng MC, yung kasi intention niya talaga, it's genuine na medyo ma-level yung playing field for participation, kasi sabi nga ni Millet ay mabigyan ng chance na yung mga basic maybe na mga groups there na hindi nila kaya mag-secure ng requirements to be accredited, na pwede sila maging part ng council para meron siyang space for them to engage. Diba? So parang okay, make it more inclusive, di ba? Parang ganun yung intention. The other one is, na-mention ko na kasi yung potential talaga ng having a network, like a People's Council, di ba? May mga advantages, like vehicle siya for consensus building, for agenda development. There's power in number. And then, pwede kayo hatakan, pataas, alam mo yon, yung parang support talaga, source of support. And of course, making sure that lahat ng boses ay marinig, di ba? So, yan ang ini-envision sana na potential and opportunities ng People's Council. But however, meron siyang downside kung hindi pa ready yung mga areas, wala pang willing na taker. Pwede rin siyang magiging counterproductive, that can work against the agenda, that can work against and even forfeit the intention of the circular, right? So yun ang iniiwasan. Kaya I think that's the reason why merong provision na yung MC na hindi siya mandated, parang it's like optional, di ba? Parang kaya nga enjoining. Kaya nakikita ko yung power ng paggamit ng word na enjoining doon sa ang mensahe nun kasi it's both an opportunity an option for the CSO to claim or even for the LGUs to claim. 'Di ba? Kasi may ganung MC 'di ba? So either way, kung ang CSOs ang mag-claim noon and they think that they are ready, no? At kung tayo ay nandoon sa mga lugar na yon, area natin yon, by all means, you claim that. Then make sure that you go through the process of may social preparation, yung ganun ba. Hindi pa klaro kung may sagot na support no ang DILG, but I don't think na merong support financially for that one, no? Kasi parang ganito yun CSO ka, strategy mo yung pag-engage sa government and you see the value of networking and coming together no para mas may kayo no mas may leveraging capacity kayo. Diba? Alam na natin yan 20 years ago, na-prove na natin yan na may benefits talaga. Diba? But yun na nga, may role ka to claim that. No? On the other side, kung hindi mo i-claim yon at yung people in government, especially for example, the local chief executives, they would have their own motivation and agenda. Diba? They can also create that condition for CSOs to do it. Pero hindi necessary yung ideal, the way we want it to be. Right? Kasi it's the thinking of a politician, seeing through the process of operationalizing the MC, that can be dangerous. Diba? So, yun ang nakikita kong we have to see the opportunities as well as the downside of it or the weaknesses. So either way, paano mo yan tingnan? No? Kaya naglagay ako dun sa chat na baka kailangan mag-strategize, hindi for the entire country, but by province. Di ba? Kasi tayo, for example, sa CODE-NGO, ang ating mga miyembro ay provincial members, di ba? May mga provincial networks, di ba? May regional, but of course may provincial at may city, di ba? Ganun ang ating struktura, yung social infrastructure natin. So, baka kailangan mag-decide tayo, province by province, sino yung pwedeng kumasana at ano yung kayang gawin. For example, di ba? I'm not only talking of CODE-NGO, I'm talking of TFPLG in general, like Kaisahan. They're so strong in Leyte. Ang dami na nilang mga victories doon, di ba? So, by all means, gamitin mo na yung MC na yan to expand your base in Leyte, not only in 3 municipalities there, para ganun, no? Your work with the peasants there, mga ganun ba? So either way, no, kasi it's there, the MC is there, no? On the other hand, doon naman sa mga lugar no, na hindi masyadong ganun ka-progressive yung pagtingin at pag-intindi no, sa participatory local governance, so other politicians might look at it as their opportunity, right? So in that case, 'di ba? Ano yung pwedeng diyan yung positioning ng CSO. Diba? Again, may provision ang MC no that pwede in a way ma-nullify, 'di ba? Pwede siyang ma-undo, may ganung space no for undoing the process no of having a council if it's not serving no the interest, for example, no and the basis no of coming up in the first place of with that MC. Pero yun lang isip, no? Kasi, pagkasabihin mo enjoining, parang Pandora's box. Alam mo yun? Parang, it can work, it cannot work. But either way, ano yung ng CSO dyan? Ano yung kanyang positioning, di ba? Paano niya yung sarili niya? I-presenta, di ba? CSO ka di ba? Pwede rin naman, hindi ka makialam, di ba? That's your right. Pwede rin naman. But, merong mangyayari kasi kung hindi ka makialam. Right? So, yun.
And I think isa rin sa naging comment din ni Mr. Glenn Baez doon po sa ating chat na the parang strong pillars of the participatory governance and having a capable civil society organization and an open and willing local government units to make this work. This is question for Ms. Nancy Istelioso from the PPDO of Marinduque, Ms. Marian. Ang tanong niya po ay regarding sa membership to the PDC of the People Development Council, is there in a People's Council membership different po doon sa People Development Council? So yung kanya pong membership, since daw po yung PDC specify there's a specific section in RA 7160 as to the membership to the CSO, which is 25%. So, meron po bang kaibahan yung People's Council sa Dumaguete and there's a membership in the People Development Council?
Yes, merong siyang okay. So, first of all, magkaiba talaga siya, no? Yung PDC, in particular yung sa Dumaguete, was organized under a specific ordinance, yung 62. So we were organized because of that ordinance. In that ordinance, malinaw kung sino ang magiging member ng PDC. So yung magiging member noon, yung mga NGOs at POs in Dumaguete City, recognized or accredited ng Dumaguete City. At saka yung sectors and POs na under ng city sectoral desk. So in other words, kahit hindi ka accredited, pero recognized ka ng PDC, kaya feeling ko may kaibahan kami dito sa practice namin kasi parang may independence talaga kami kasi hindi kami controlled ng sanggunian. We organized ourselves, we choose among ourselves kung sino yung magiging representative. Hindi yun kung sino yung i-recognize lang, mag-given ng certificate of recognition by the sanggunian. So yun. Yung CDC naman, yung City Development Council, iba naman yon, no? So yung composition ng CDC, meron lang percentage yata yung civil society representatives, mga 3 or 5 lang siguro. So in other words, may it's also a mandate by law na ibang organization yon. So ang CDC dito, City Development Council, may representation lang tayo percentage. Pero yung People's Development Council, atin talaga yon, purely. Pero may comment ako before, did I answer? I hope I answered her question. But I would also like to comment no sa memorandum circular. I can feel na there is good intention naman in this circular. But I think parang may contradictory. While genuine yung intention na magkaroon talaga ng meaningful and kanang participation, nagkukontra, no? Specifically yung control ng sanggunian over the selection ng sino yung mabibigyan ng certificate of authorization, representation, and also the tedious na requirements sa documents. So siguro may kailangan na i-fine-tune doon sa memorandum circular para talaga maging consistent na while you want participation, but at the same time, take away those provisions na parang nag-clip-clip or hindi talaga nagbibigay ng maganda or nagfa-facilitate ng meaningful participation of the people. So dapat may fine-tuning on. Okay? Thank you.
It should be complemented and it should not be a redundant process. And I think yun din yung ini-emphasize kanina ng ibang mga participants natin sa mga participants natin kanina. And also there's a question about from Emmanuel Areño of iCode. Does the membership of People's Council at the municipal require residency? As a practice, in many LGUs, they do act on application of NGOs outside of LGUs. Ms. Millet?
Okay, dun po sa comment muna ni Ms. Nancy.
Okay.
So itong policy, it's actually just a prescriptive policy. It's general guidelines. And we also did our research yung dun sa isang publication ng CODE-NGO. I think it was on Naga City People's Council. They have yung associate membership tsaka yung regular members. So yung regular members yung na-meet na yung lahat ng requirements. Tapos yung associate members, sila pa yung hindi pa na-meet yung requirements. Pero they can be a consultative body ng sanggunian and also the People's Council. So yung ganong structure, yung ganong setup, open naman po tayo sa ganong klaseng setup. Nakadepende naman na po yun sa pag-negotiate natin sa mga CSOs with the sanggunian kung papayagan nila yung ganon and also if it would be included in the internal rules of the People's Council. Now, yung naman po sa question on residency, yung kailangan po is they have project implementation in the locality for at least 1 year, as stated dun sa memorandum circular.
Additional to that, from ano pa rin, kay Sir Emmanuel Areño. Could one CSO in several People's Council at municipal and city level, like for example, isang munisipyo and then nag-apply for a city level, yung isang CSO?
For that po, kasi di ba parang ang mangyayari dyan ay, kumbaga dominated na ng CSO na yan ang, kumbaga lahat ng municipalities and cities na a-applyan niya. Siguro the question is also if, how are they operating in the other municipalities and the cities? Do you want po na localized ang pag-operate ng mga CSOs within the People's Council?
Ma'am, if
Yes,
I may, bilat may mga ano kasi, may mga NGOs provincial-wide, di ba? So, siya sample ng accreditation kasi they are operating in a number of municipalities. Yung ganun. And therefore, they also earn that kind of registration of accreditation. And they also I know Boyet Areño, no? They have been doing kasi programs on PLG and usually yung clusters no, ng municipalities. And for them to be able to operate, they have to also seek, di ba, yung accreditation at that level. So hindi naman talaga dinodominate, parang they have earned the right no, to be recognized because they operate no, in that municipality no, by virtue of project. So yun ang tanong nga kung yung residency kailangan. Kasi I guess no, doon sa accreditation ng sanggunian for the purpose of participating no, in the LSBs, no, we are allowed to do that no, kahit na dahil provincial wide ang may scope mo, your office is based in the city but not necessarily na city ka lang no, yung operation mo. I try to apply lang no, yung sa CODAL o sa IRR, if that also applies sa council.
Yeah, yung titignan na lang po natin yung project implementation in the locality. So kung ganun, pwede rin naman po na operating different cities and municipalities sa province or sa different people's councils.
And I think dito nag-ano yung kahalagahan ng IRR to our memorandum circular. There's also a question, I think mag-entertain pa tayo ng some questions pa before we proceed to our time check. It's 11:43 and I think there's a question na kailangan pang sagutin para din marinig ng lahat kasi nga there's also an existing People's Council right now. So this question is from Geoffrey Ang of the Liloy's People Council and also from Akma, si Kuya Ping Pampolme, which is also an active member of the Quezon City Council. So ang tanong nila ay about those already created People's Council with the process not perfectly followed what was on the MC stated, what do we do? Or katulad din sa experience ng Quezon City na they already have passed the ordinance, yung creation ng Quezon City People's Council, but a decade passed, it's still on papers. So no IRR. So how can we operationalize it? And ano siguro ang mahalagang role ng DILG on this? Kasi nga hindi rin naman ito bago itong People's Council. So may some initiatives na at the different level. So how can we learn from that experiences?
Okay, dito po sa memorandum circular sa section 7.1.2.1, we have a provision stating na yung LGUs na meron ng ordinance or resolution with a system of partnership sa CSOs, they don't need to issue a new one anymore for the purposes of the memorandum circular. Then yung doon naman po sa Quezon City, actually when we had our regional rollout sa NCR, sabi sa amin ng field officer ng Quezon City ay open naman po si Mayor Joy Belmonte na yung dito po sa People's Council. So I think sa part ng CSOs, kailangan na i-advocate po natin, i-push natin na maging active po talaga yung pag-implement ng policy. And I guess to do that, need din po ng coordination sa DILG field office. So ayun po, very open naman po yung field office natin, tsaka yung si Mayor Joy Belmonte for the People's Council.
Maraming salamat, Milet. And I think may mga humihingi din dito. Meron na bang template ng DILG for a local ordinance? May mga humihingi ng Dumaguete ordinance. And also from the questions from the registration, they're also asking for a template if ever nga na yung LGUs ay mag-contact or they have an interest to have this People's Council at importante to have that local ordinance. So yun. May mga some questions pa po tayo. But hindi ko na po mababasa lahat kasi sobrang dami pa. But what we will do from the TFPLG Secretariat to consolidate all the questions and then give the questions to the DILG BLGS and provide concrete answers, and we will provide you the answers to all your queries. We have limitations lang po with the time with that. But ito na lang, kay Ka-Uper na lang po. There's one question siguro, last na po. How can we convince siguro yung mga basic sectors to be part of this People's Council? May tanong po dito from from Ruby Di Solo, how do People's Council help small people's organization, basic sector, for them to be motivated to join the council?
Oh yes, salamat.
As also wear your hat as the vice chairperson of the NAPC basic sector, and how you will use this platform to ensure the voice of the basic sectors.
Yes, marami kaming ginagawa ngayon na activities just to enlighten our mga basic sector sa mga mahalagang platform o itong mechanism ng ating government. In fact, meron kaming ginagawang online kapihan like I mentioned earlier, kung saan iniimbitahan namin ang concerned government na mayroong programa na ganyan para magpaliwanag at magtanong din sila sa ganon. And aside from that, marami kaming activity na isinasama namin sa aming mga talakayan ang kahalagahan ng people's participation. No? Kasi nga ang sinasabi namin, kung ang pag-uusapan mo rin lamang ay mahirap, hindi maaring iwanan sa pag-uusap yung mga mahihirap kasi sila yung nakakaalam. So we need to be actively participating in that At marami pa kaming ginagawa pero siyempre malaki ang role ng government para sa magsagawa ng mas massive information para ma-encourage yung mga people's organization na dumalo dyan. No? Nais ko rin samantalain yung pagkakataon na sinasabi kanina na how can the People's Council help the small people's organizations. No? Kaya kami matindi yung aming advokasya na magkaroon ng mga sectoral council members na maging member doon sa mga RDCs and up to the barangay level. Kasi nga ang sabi natin, itong People's Council mas maganda ngayon kasi purely people ang magpo-compose nito. Di ba meron tayong Sangguniang Bayan Council, this elected by the people. Ito, wala kami doon sa Sangguniang Bayan. Dito sa People's Council, dapat wala rin yung Sangguniang Bayan dito dahil ito para sa People's Council. And dapat maintindihan ng mga tao yon na magiging platform ng mga civil society organization, people's organization, itong People's Council nito para marinig yung voices nila at ma-aksyonan ng concern LGU. Kasi marami hindi naman nakakaupo tulad ng binabanggit kanina sa LDC, portion lamang at mga politically motivated na pagtalaga doon sa mga LGC, mga people's organization. Pero dito, ang sinasabi natin, we need to capacitate the POs para mas ma-strengthen yung kanilang kakayahan, no, na mag-assert ng mga issue. At yung mga hindi nakaupo, yung mga organization within the municipality, puntahan nila, bantayan nila itong People's Council kasi dapat ito ay yung agenda nila ang binibitbit ng mga ito. So kung maintindihan ng mga tao yon, I think they will be encouraged to join this mechanism.
Maraming salamat po Ka-Uper. There's also, I think, some suggestion na baka pwedeng pag-isipan din ng DILG BLGS kasi I think nasa inyo rin yung Seal of Good Governance, yung SGLP. I think the incentives na pwedeng ibigay sa mga LGUs to implement this MC, and also yung isang, I think, immediate answer to the question of Ma'am Marieta Huwang ng CDAR Region 3 ay katulad po nabanggit ni Ms. Jing kanina na kasi nga yung operations naman natin at different levels. So if you think that you are operating at a provincial level and also you're operating the municipal level, pwede kayong mag-participate in the People's Council. So we will consolidate all the questions. The task force for participatory local governance will consolidate all the questions. We will provide the questions to the DILG BLGS so they can provide concrete answers to all your questions. Maraming salamat po sa inyong mga tanong. Hindi pa naman po natatapos dito sa ating discussion yung mga pag-uusap about dito sa People's Council. To give us the synthesis and the moving forward, may I call on the Executive Director of the Kaisahan, none other than Mr. Anthony Marsan.
Maraming salamat, Mafe. No? Mukhang kulang talaga yung oras para pag-usapan pa, no? Marami pang tanong. So isang magandang indikasyon na marami pa, malaki yung interest, no? Dun sa MC 21-54. At mukhang na-achieve naman yung nakakontribute tayo dun sa dalawang objectives na nabanggit ni Dini kanina nung umpisa. So siguro sa synthesis, isa yung malinaw, no, na welcome sa CSO yung issuance ng MC 21-54. Siguro dahil yung una yung People's Council matagal natin hinahangad, bukod nga sa local sectoral representation na elected na wala pa ring enabling law. Yung People's Council na katulad ng sa Naga at sa Dumaguete. At yung kaya welcome din yung sabi kanina, no, kaya welcome din kasi nakatulong yung MC 2021-54 para matanggal yung requirement for PNP sa ka-epic clearance dun sa unang MC, yung MC 21 na malaki yung ating yung pagtutol. At isang indikasyon niyan na magandang katrabaho yung DILG kasi nakikinig yung DILG sa feedback, no, sa mga suggestion. At sana nga na makonsidera yung isang nabanggit dito kanina pa na sana makonsidera ng DILG yung mga changes pa, no, para mas mapabuti at yung ma-improve pa yung yung participation, no, mas maging participatory. Mag-lead yung MC21 sa mas mataas na participation ng mga CSOs sa local governance. At mukhang mangyayari naman yan kasi yung implementation nito siguro ay after election ng 2022. Plus yung isang yung nababanggit din kanina na yung MC 2021 na ngayon ay directory pa lang, hindi mandatory. At umaasa yung mga kasama na sana magkaroon ng mas definitibong yung batasman o ordinansa o polisiya ang gobyerno para gawin na itong institutionalize na, no, yung People's Council. Nabanggit din, maraming suggestion, isasubmit naman yan, sabi nga ni Mape, isasubmit yung consolidation ng mga feedback saka mga proposed changes dun sa MC. Siguro moving forward, Mape, yung mga lumutang dun sa discussion ay malaki talaga yung susi talaga yung success ng People's Council, yung proactive people's participation kasi yun yung reason kaya na-create yung People's Council. At sabi nga ni Jing dun sa chat saka dun sa kanyang input kanina no na hindi level yung playing field, no? Maraming CSO advanced na yung engagement sa mga People's Council, merong mga hindi. So malaki talaga na na role ng DILG at ng mga CSOs yung i-capacitate pa yung mga people's organizations, yung mga NGOs, mga local NGOs to engage in local governance, lalo na ngayon na may People's Council na mas malaki yung yung opportunity for participation, kaya maganda na sabay-sabay sana tayo yung level ng mga CSOs to engage in participatory local governance ay makatulong yung CSOs at ng DILG. Yun lang, Mape, maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat, Katune. And also, before we to formally close our activity this morning, may we request you to fill up our post-event survey for this session. So for you to get all the copies of the presentation, and we really appreciate your inputs to help us improve of our services. So marami pang mga tanong, pero patuloy ang discussion. Sabi nga ni ito ay simula lamang ng mahaba-haba pang usapin. So, to formally close our morning session, may I call on the National Coordinator of PhilDHRRA, none other than Ms. Caridad Carito. Ma'am Karing?
Magandang umaga po sa lahat. Siguro naman you would agree with me at sinabi naman po ito ni Tone that I think we have fully achieved our objectives for this talk, CSO talk, yung strengthening governance through People's Councils. Kanina po when we started, we had a poll and only about 4%, of the participants were aware of this MC. So I hope, and there were about 37% who were not aware of this MC, and 60 were a little bit aware. So sana po medyo malapit na tayo, kung hindi man po umabot sa 100% sa atin, ang naging familiar na at naintindihan ang MC na to. Maraming salamat po kay Ms. Milet Agata Aquino for sharing with us, clearly discussing with us the key features of this MC 2021-54. And I also would like to commend at this time yung DILG for being very responsive to the civil society organizations. Nung una pong lumabas ang MC na ito, marami pong, well, if I may say it in English, we had a great hope. Kasi merong medyo controversial provisions, and there were also other provisions na medyo may mga katanungan ang NGOs. And DILG was very quick in responding to our concerns. Kasi nagkaroon nga tayo ng dialogue. I think we requested for dialogue. Yung ibang sectors, yung ibang organizations, they sent letters to DILG, and true enough, DILG acted quickly on our concerns, so they had this amendment. So thank you very much for DILG, and I hope there were again many concerns and suggestions that were given by our participants this morning. So sana po mabigyan uli ng attention ng DILG ang pagsagot sa mga katanungan ito, at maybe it would also be good if we can really, as suggested earlier, that we can already further fine-tune the MC and come up with the IRR, so that we can really move forward to the organizing of these people's councils. For the second objective, we were able to discuss the role of non-government sectors in shaping the People's Councils as a vehicle for addressing the emerging concerns at the local levels and ensure genuine citizen participation in governance processes. So again, I would say that we were able to accomplish this objective. And for that, I would like to thank my very good friend, Dr. Jing Lopez, and of course,
Jing lang.
okay. Okay, and si Ka-Uper po, no? I have been hearing, or I have known Ka-Uper for a long time. He has been very active representative of the basic sectors, particularly the fishing communities. And thank you so much also for Nancy Estolioso for sharing with us your experience with Dumaguete People's Council. So as we move on, I look forward, no? Sana ma-implement, no? Itong MC at I really look forward to having, no, or meeting more people's councils throughout the country. Maganda po ang experience, no? Alam naman nating lahat yung experience sa Naga City, tsaka sa iba, like Dumaguete, I don't know. So it will really be worthwhile if we replicate these people's councils throughout the country. And therefore, in behalf of my organization, PhilDHRRA, and the TFPLG, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. It's a Monday, and for all of us, this is a very important day kasi this is the start of the week. So usually marami tayong mga gawain sa araw na ito, but then we were able to devote this whole morning for this activity. So maraming salamat po sa lahat. Good day, everyone.
Okay, maraming salamat, Ms. Karin. Can I request everyone, I know it's 12:02, nag-ano na po tayo ng 2 minutes, but I think we deserve to have our photo op for this morning, para lang po may souvenir po tayo. Can I request Kuya Dino and Kat to help me in sa pag-screenshot ng ating photo op. I will count. I think we have 8 panels. So, paano na lang po ako, patulong na lang po ako. So, are you ready, Kuya Dino and Kat from PhilDHRRA? Okay, sige po. Ka-count po ako and then keep smiling. So, 1, 2, 3, smile. Another 1, 1, 2, 3. A smile. Again, 1, 2, 3, smile. Hirap pala mag-artista, no? 1, 2, 3, smile. And again, 1, 2, 3, smile. Pasabihan na lang po ako ni Kat at saka ni Kuya Dino kung okay na. Again, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay na. So I got an okay. Kuya Dino, muli, maraming salamat po. So we will also provide the link of the evaluation form sa inyo pong mga email. So isi-send po namin ito sa inyo. Kung hindi nyo po mabuksan yung shorter version ng aming URL, we will also provide you the longer version of our URL for the evaluation form. So please expect an email from the TFPLG Secretariat. So sana naging makabuluhan ang ating umaga, ang ating Lunes. So patuloy pa rin po tayong makipag-dialogo at makipag-usap to make this initiative productive and successful. Muli, magandang tanghali sa inyong lahat. Feel free to grab your own lunch. So muli, marami pong salamat. So,
maraming salamat po sa lahat.
Thank you.
maraming salamat po.
Thank you.
Thank you po. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much
Bye.
po.
very much.
Bye-bye.
Salamat po.
Thank you.
Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat po sa CODE-NGO, sa Salle
Daghang
Institute,
salamat.
sa Kaisahan, and also with PhilDHRRA. Maraming salamat po.
Salamat. Sir Jun, alauna Sir Jun.
Diyos mabalos po.
Diyos mabalos. Daghang salamat. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.
Thank you. Diyos mabalos.
Mabalos.
Salamat.
Maraming
Salamat po.
Kat Kuya Dino.
Si Tupe Secretariat NCPC.
Mag-live na ta. Oh. Mamping.
Maraming
Hello,
salamat
Mamping.
sa lahat.
Hello.
Abalos. Maf.
Maraming salamat po.
Survey na. Happy si survey daw.
Thank you. Amping sa lahat.
Naman natin magagawa ng anything.
Hello.
Po.
Tapos na ba?
Opo, Kuya Idil.
Sorry, katapos ko rin. No.
I-email ko na lang po kayo, Kuya Idil.
Sana bigyan mo ko ng what transpired during the discussion.
Yes,
Oo.
po. We will
At saka yung mga presentation, baka pwedeng magamit.
Apo.
Okay.
Idil.
Thank you. Sorry talaga. May emergency meeting ako.
Okay lang po, Kuya Idil. Mag-i-email lang po kami sa inyo for further
Hindi ka marinig, mahina.
Hello, Kuya Emil. Kuya
Oo.
Emil, we'll also email all of you for further instructions on how to get the presentations of today's session po.
Okay, sige. Thank
Maraming salamat, Kuya
Thank
Idil.
you.
Ingat po. And everyone, maraming salamat po. Keep safe and take your lunch. Hi.
Pwede pala eh. Thanks, Dino.
Napagod ako remove.
Ano, ma'am?
Kanina pa ako nag-remove, so... Kapagod.
Doon ako sa baba. Kasi doon kayo sa taas. Dito ako sa baba nag-start. Nag-remove.
Nag-remove. Okay.
So,
kasama natin si Ika. Hello.
Hi, Ika. Thank you. Oh, congratulations. 175 participants ba? Maganda yung combination ng mga participants from different sectors.
Ano siya? Ang gamit kasi natin yung UGP directory, so yun yung ginamit nating pag-send. So ilang araw din yung pag-send na yun. Anyway, yung next step na lang, mahalaga yung next step natin for this. But I think yun na. Tama si Ate Dini, congratulations everyone. Kay Kuya Dino at saka kay Kat for helping us organizing this TFPLG initiatives. And also thank you for Ika for helping us to document this session. Of course, kay Ate Dini na biglaan yung hindi pala buti na lang na text natin si Ate Didi na siya yung mag-opening today. So naisipan ko lang isend sa kanya yung link kasi nga baka natatabunan na sa daming email. Tapos sabi ni Ate Didi, wala naman akong role, 'di ba? Sabi ko meron opening ka. So,
sorry, Dits. Parang bigla ko lang naramdaman na parang meron yata akong gagawin dito sa webinar na to. Pero hindi ko sure. Kala ko yung closing remarks na noon sa LSIG on elections. Kasi yun nga, may open remarks. Anyway, sige. In terms of advocacy, anong pwedeng next steps, Deans and Kat?
Yes. Well, daming paano ko ba i-describe yung mga yun? Concern, challenge, critic.
recording.
Okay naman.